I always thought betrayal would come in the form of a lie. A message left open on a phone. Lipstick that wasn't hers. But when Sophie said the words out loud, without flinching, without shame, it wasn't betrayal that hit me first. It was disbelief. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same one we bought together 7 years ago when we closed on the house. I remember her twirling around the showroom, laughing about how she wanted something sturdy and sexy. I thought she meant the table. Now I wonder if she was talking about me. "Jake," she said, her hands folded like we were in couples therapy. "I've been thinking, maybe it's time we open things up." I stared at her for a beat too long. My coffee was still steaming between my fingers, untouched. "Open things up?" "Our marriage," she clarified, with the tone of someone suggesting Thai takeout instead of sushi. "I've been reading about it, watching some podcasts. It's called ethical non-monogamy. It's not cheating, it's exploration." She smiled then. God, she actually smiled like this was a gift. Like this was supposed to be exciting for both of us. I didn't speak. Not at first. My pulse ticked slower than usual, like my body was trying to buffer the moment before it crashed. Sophie was beautiful. That part never changed. Even now, across the table, her chestnut hair falling loosely over her shoulders, her white robe parted just enough to hint at the curve of her collarbone, she was stunning. We'd had amazing sex. Wild, connected, vulnerable sex. I thought that meant something. Apparently, I was wrong. "Why?" I asked, my voice a quiet cut in the air between us. She hesitated. That was new. Sophie never hesitated. She danced through life with confident chaos. "It's what drew me in. It's also what broke me open now. I just feel like I've missed out," she said, looking down at her hands. "We met in college. Got married at 25. And I love you, Jake. I really do. But don't you ever wonder what else is out there? Who else? I mean, haven't you ever been curious?" I took a long breath. The kind you take before impact. Then I stood up slowly, deliberately, like something sacred had just died in the room. "If you need other men," I said, voice steady, "you don't need me." She blinked. "What?" "I want a divorce." I don't know if it was the suddenness of it or the clarity in my voice, but she froze. Her mouth opened slightly, as if to protest, but I didn't give her the chance. "I'm not angry, Sophie. Not yet. But I'm not doing this experiment with you. I'm not going to sit at home while you let someone else inside your body. This isn't a phase. This is a line. And you crossed it the moment you asked me to share you." She stood too now, flustered, reaching for me like her touch could glue the cracks back together. "Jake, wait. It was just a conversation. I didn't do anything. I was trying to be honest with you. Shouldn't that count for something?" "It does," I said, stepping back. "It tells me exactly what you want. And it's not me." I walked to the bedroom. She followed, pleading in a whisper, calling my name like maybe this was still salvageable. But I didn't shout. I didn't break things. I just opened our closet and grabbed my duffel. The smell of her perfume was thick on my shirts. That alone almost broke me. "Jake, please," she whispered from the doorway, now visibly shaking. "This doesn't have to be a breakup. I love you. I'm not ready to stop living." "And you think I'm dead?" I said, meeting her eyes. "You think marriage is a cage instead of a choice? You don't want me. You want options." I zipped the bag. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. "I never said I didn't want you," she said, a tear sliding down her cheek. I should have kissed that tear away. I used to. But instead, I just walked past her, pausing at the threshold like a man leaving a church he no longer believes in. "I'm done being your option, Sophie." I left that night. No screaming. No slammed doors. Just the quiet click of the front door behind me and the sound of my own footsteps echoing into a future I hadn't planned. I drove for 20 minutes before I let myself cry. The kind of cry that doesn't come with sobs, just that tight, breathless ache behind the eyes. The kind of ache that says something ended, and no amount of therapy, sex, or second chances will ever bring it back. She called once. I didn't answer. That night, I checked into a modest apartment complex across town. Temporary housing. 1 bedroom. Small kitchen. Ugly wallpaper. But it was mine. And no one was going to ask me to share anything anymore. Not my body. Not my time. Not my love. Not again. The apartment smelled like dust and unfamiliar detergent. A faded beige couch leaned against one wall, and a chipped coffee table sat in front of it like a piece of discarded history. There were no pictures. No dishes. Just a bed, a suitcase, and a man trying not to think about the woman he'd just left behind. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the wall, wondering how it all slipped so fast. Less than 12 hours ago, I was a husband. Now I was what? A ghost? A runaway? I didn't sleep that first night. The silence was too loud. By noon the next day, I was still in yesterday's jeans, scrolling half-heartedly through housing listings I couldn't afford. I just closed my laptop when the knock came. 3 quick taps. I opened the door without thinking. And there she was. Lily. Sophie's cousin. I hadn't seen her in years. 5, maybe 6? Not since her last Thanksgiving visit, when she showed up in a leather jacket, smirking like she knew something the rest of us didn't. Back then she was the wild card in Sophie's polished deck. Unapologetic, sharp-tongued, beautiful in a way that made you look twice without knowing why. Now she was standing in my doorway, her black curls pulled into a loose bun, oversized sunglasses hiding her eyes, a slouchy gray sweater hanging off one shoulder like it was an accident. She wasn't smiling. "I heard," she said, low enough that I had to lean in. My throat tightened. "How?" "Sophie," she replied, brushing past me and stepping into the apartment like she belonged there. "She called my mom. Said you overreacted." She said the word with air quotes and a scoff. I closed the door behind her. "Let me guess. Sophie didn't mention the part where she asked for an open marriage." "She did." Lily turned slowly. "Which is why I came." I blinked. "You came here." Lily raised one brow and pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were storm gray, narrowed with something fierce behind them. "You're 2 floors below me. Apartment 3B. I moved in last month." I couldn't even pretend to be surprised anymore. She sat on the edge of the armrest, folding one leg over the other. "She told me what she said to you, and I told her she's a goddamn idiot." I sat down across from her, not trusting myself to speak. "She said you walked out like it was nothing," Lily went on. "But I knew better. Sophie never sees what she has until it's gone." I looked away, jaw clenched. She wanted to sleep with other men. How exactly was I supposed to respond? Lily tilted her head. "You responded perfectly." I glanced back at her. "You think so?" She leaned forward, voice low. She has no idea what she just threw away. The silence between us was thick. I could smell her perfume, something musky and dark, like sandalwood and spice. I didn't mean to stare, but my eyes dropped to her bare shoulder, to the way the sweater slipped just enough to show the edge of a black bra strap. She caught my gaze, and for a split second, neither of us looked away. "I didn't come down here to flirt," she said, smirking faintly. "But I'm not going to pretend you don't look like hell in a sexy kind of way." That caught me off guard. I laughed, just a short, bitter sound. "Lily," I said slowly, "this is a bad idea." "I didn't suggest anything," she replied, her eyes dancing. "Not yet." I stood up, needing space between us. "She's your cousin." "Half-cousin," she corrected. "And I haven't liked her since 2018. I think it was the year she told me I needed Botox." I rubbed a hand over my face. "Jesus. I'm not here to cause drama, Jake." Her voice softened. "I'm here because I know how much this hurts. You're not the kind of guy women should take for granted." I turned toward the window, the sun casting faint stripes through the blinds. "I loved her," I said finally. "I thought we had something real, something worth protecting." "You did," she said. "But Sophie's idea of love is more about novelty than depth." I didn't respond. My chest was too tight. Lily stood slowly and walked toward me. Her footsteps were soft, her presence even softer. "I brought you something," she said, reaching into the leather bag on her hip. She pulled out a small brown box. I took it, wary. "Cookies," she said. "Oatmeal chocolate chip. Don't read too much into it." "Too late," I said, cracking the faintest smile. She looked up at me, her gaze steady. "If you ever want to talk, or scream, or break shit, I'm upstairs." She moved toward the door, then paused just before stepping out. "And Jake," she added, without turning around. "Yeah. You're going to be okay. Better than okay." With that, she left, closing the door gently behind her. I stood there for a long time, box of cookies in hand, wondering what the hell just happened. I didn't know if I was ready for anything. But for the first time in 24 hours, the apartment didn't feel quite so empty. And Sophie, she suddenly felt very far away. It was 3 days before I saw Lily again. I'd spent most of that time unpacking the boxes I hadn't intended to keep. Every item I pulled out, from the framed wedding photo to the cracked his and hers coffee mugs, felt like a small punch to the ribs. I should have thrown them out, burned them. Instead, I shoved them into the back of a closet and pretended they weren't there. Sophie had texted once. Just a simple, "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. It was a Thursday evening when Lily knocked again. This time, she was holding 2 white takeout bags and wearing a long burgundy cardigan that fell off one shoulder, paired with tight jeans and black boots that looked like they'd walked over a few hearts on the way here. "You're eating with me tonight," she said, stepping in before I could argue. "You don't get a vote." I blinked. "You always this pushy? You always this easy to bully?" she smirked, tossing me a bag. "Pad thai. Spicy. Don't cry." We ate cross-legged on the floor because I still didn't have a dining table. Between bites, we talked. Not about Sophie. Lily didn't bring her up again, but about everything else. She'd been divorced for 2 years. No kids. Worked from home designing custom lingerie for a niche client base she jokingly referred to as sensual weirdos and runaway brides. She said it without shame, with that glint in her eye that dared you to judge her. "You really design lingerie?" I asked, genuinely curious. She nodded, dipping a spring roll into sweet sauce. "I started in fashion design. Moved to undergarments because people are more honest when they're half-naked. It's freeing. Intimate in a different way. And lucrative." Lily grinned. "Men pay more when they think the lace might come with a story." I laughed, choking slightly on my drink. After dinner, she stood and stretched, her shirt lifting just enough to reveal a small black ink tattoo along her waist. A simple phrase in cursive script. I tried not to stare, but Lily noticed anyway. "You want to see the real show?" she asked, half teasing. I raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "Come upstairs," she said. "I want to show you something." I followed her out into the hallway, up 2 flights of stairs, to her apartment, Unit 3B. It smelled like vanilla and cedarwood, with soft jazz humming from somewhere inside. But it wasn't the music or the lighting that got me. It was the walls. They were covered in sketches, some framed, others pinned directly onto corkboard. Bodies draped in lace, silk corsets, slitted nightgowns, hand-drawn mannequins wearing leather harnesses that were more art than kink. Some were hyper-realistic, others abstract. The colors were deep: midnight blue, wine red, storm gray, jet black. No bright pastels, no bubblegum pink. This was a woman's world, and it pulsed with energy. "Welcome to the lair," Lily said, slipping off her boots. I stood still, hands in my pockets. "You made all this?" "Every piece," she said, walking toward a tall mannequin in the corner. It wore a sheer black bodysuit, open at the sides, held together by delicate gold chains. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. She turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Most men flinch when they see this room." "Why?" "Because it's power," she said. "Most men don't know what to do with a woman who dresses other women for the parts of themselves they keep hidden." I took a step forward. "I'm not most men." Her smile shifted into something softer. "No, you're not." She moved to a low cabinet, opened a drawer, and pulled out a stack of fabric swatches. Lace, velvet, satin. She handed me one. "Feel this." I rubbed the smooth navy blue silk between my fingers. It was impossibly soft, lighter than air. "Good hands," she murmured, watching me. I looked up, her face suddenly much closer. "Lily, I'm not making a move, Jake," she said quietly. "Not yet. I just wanted you to see this part of me. The parts Sophie never understood." I swallowed hard. "What makes you think I want to see it?" "Because you're still here," she said simply. She walked over to another mannequin, this one dressed in a half-constructed corset and lace-trimmed panties. She pulled a shawl around her shoulders, but the way she moved, fluid, deliberate, felt like choreography, a kind of sensual control Sophie never had. "You ever wonder," she said, turning to me, "what it would be like to be chosen completely? No conditions, no open door. Just someone who says, you and only you." I didn't answer, because I had wondered. For years, in fact. Lily stepped closer, just enough that I could feel the heat between us. "I heard what she said to you," she murmured, "about wanting excitement. You deserve more than a proposal like that. You deserve to be wanted, not negotiated." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just let the moment settle between us, thick and electric. Then she stepped back, gave me space to breathe. "Thanks for dinner," I said finally. Anytime, she replied, leading me to the door. Just don't be surprised if I knock again. As I walked back down the hallway to my apartment, my pulse still hadn't slowed. Not because of anything that happened, but because of everything that almost did. Lily's world was full of shadows and silk, and I wasn't sure I could stay out of it for long. You never really realize how quiet your life was until you're living alone again. The first week in the apartment crawled by in shades of gray. I cooked a few times, basic stuff, nothing like the weekend meals I used to make for Sophie and me. Now it was eggs, toast, maybe pasta if I could be bothered. Most nights, I just drank water out of the same mug and listened to the hum of the refrigerator while scrolling aimlessly through my phone. The bed was too big for one man. The silence in the room felt wrong, like it was waiting for something that would never return. And Sophie kept texting. First it was the short stuff. Are you okay? Can we talk? This isn't how I wanted things to go. Then the guilt-riddled paragraphs. I didn't mean to push you away. I just wanted to explore a part of myself I never got to when we were younger. That doesn't mean I don't love you. I wasn't trying to replace you. I thought maybe we could grow together. Try new things. I didn't expect you to just leave. I didn't answer. Not once. I knew if I opened that door, I'd start to question myself. And I was finally beginning to breathe without her in my lungs. But Lily? Lily was showing up like clockwork. She never stayed long. Sometimes she brought food. Other times it was something small, a bottle of whiskey, a weird book about body language. Even a cactus, she said, was a better listener than most men. We talked about life, art, music, stupid things, real things. She made it feel okay to laugh again, even when I didn't think I had anything left in me but dust and regret. I didn't ask questions about her ex-husband, and she didn't press me about Sophie. We existed in this strange, suspended space. No past, no promises, just now. One evening, I was deep in the middle of reorganizing my pathetic bookshelf when I heard the knock. I expected Lily. It wasn't. It was Sophie. She stood in the hallway in a gray hoodie and black leggings, her eyes puffy, her hair pulled into the kind of messy bun that said she hadn't been sleeping. Or maybe she was trying to look like she hadn't. Hard to tell with Sophie. She could weaponize vulnerability like no one I'd ever met. Hey, she whispered. I didn't move to let her in. She looked down, chewing her lower lip. Can I come in? I don't think that's a good idea. She blinked. Jake, please. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. I exhaled. Against every instinct, I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, her eyes scanning the small space like she was trying to absorb my new life. You decorated, she said, forcing a smile. I unpacked, I replied. She nodded. It's cozy. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, saying nothing. I'm sorry, she said finally. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until you walked out. I thought we could explore something new without destroying what we had. But I was wrong. You didn't want something new, I said coldly. You wanted someone new. Her lips parted. I never cheated, Jake. No, you just asked permission first. She looked like I'd slapped her. Her breath caught, and tears sprang to her eyes. Real ones, maybe. I didn't care anymore. I was lost, she whispered. I thought if we tried something different, it would bring us closer. You asked me to watch while you opened the door to someone else, I said. You didn't want to grow with me. You wanted permission to replace me. She took a shaky step forward. Please, Jake, can we at least slow down? Pause the divorce? Go to counseling or something? I'm not ready to let go. I am, I said. Her breath hitched. Jake. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stared at her until she understood. She wiped her cheeks and nodded, her voice cracking. I guess I deserve that. Then she turned and walked toward the door. But when she opened it, Lily was standing there, holding a plastic container, wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie. She looked from Sophie to me, piecing everything together in an instant. Sophie's gaze sharpened. Of course, she said bitterly. Lily held her ground. Of course what? You always hated me, Sophie snapped. Don't think I don't see what this is. I didn't come here for you, Lily replied calmly. I came for him, because you threw him away. The tension between them was instant, thick like oil. Wow, Sophie said, stepping back. Did you just move in on him the second I left? Lily smiled, but there was no kindness in it. I moved in 2 floors above him. And no, Jake doesn't belong to anyone, least of all you. Sophie's eyes flicked to me. Is this who you are now? Jumping into bed with my cousin? I didn't rise to the bait. You left, I said quietly. And now you're upset someone else showed up when you were already gone. She didn't reply, just swallowed whatever insult was on her tongue and stepped out into the hall. Lily waited until the footsteps faded before stepping inside. She shut the door, set the container down, and turned to me. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Then she looked at me differently. Softer, with something like worry behind her eyes. Do you want company tonight? She asked. My heart thudded once. Hard. I didn't answer right away, but then I said quietly, yeah, I do. It had been 2 days since Sophie showed up at my door, and I hadn't heard from her since. Which didn't mean she was done. Not Sophie. She was just regrouping. Lily hadn't stayed that night, not all the way. She sat with me, shared a drink. We watched an old movie on my laptop. At one point, she reached over, brushed something from my jaw that wasn't there. But we didn't kiss. We didn't cross the line. Not yet. Still, something had shifted. I could feel it every time she looked at me, especially when she didn't say anything at all. It was late Sunday afternoon when it happened. I was folding laundry. Yes, badly. Trying to untangle a fitted sheet with the grace of a toddler when the doorbell buzzed. Not a knock. A full, deliberate buzz. That told me exactly who it was before I even opened the door. Sophie stood in the hallway, this time in full makeup. Jeans that hugged her hips too tightly for comfort. A top I'd never seen before. Something sheer and low-cut, chosen for effect, not comfort. She was trying to be the woman I used to chase. The one who made heads turn at parties. She probably stood in front of the mirror for 20 minutes before deciding how to style her hair just loose enough. Jake, she said, please don't shut the door. I didn't. But I didn't invite her in, either. I know I screwed up, she began, voice trembling in a rehearsed, pretty way. I know that now. I stayed silent. You were right to walk away. I just thought, I don't know. I thought we had more between us than this. That you'd understand. That you'd stay and try to work through it with me. Work through what? I asked. Your desire to fuck other men? Her face flushed red. It wasn't just about sex. Wasn't it? She looked down, breathing in sharply. Okay, maybe it was. Partly. But it was also about control, Jake. I felt like my whole life was planned out and shrinking. I shook my head slowly. So instead of talking to me, you brought me a fantasy you knew would gut me. I didn't know, she said, eyes shining now. I swear. I thought maybe if we opened things up, we could grow, together. I leaned against the doorframe, staring at her. Grow? Or escape? Sophie didn't answer that. Instead, she stepped closer, reaching for my hand. Jake, can we hit pause? On the divorce? Just for a little while. Try counseling. Go away for a weekend. Remember what we had. I looked down at her hand in mine. The same hand that used to curl around my back when we slept. The same hand that once held my wedding ring when she'd taken it off for a massage and forgot to put it back on for 3 days. It didn't feel like home anymore. I don't want to go backwards, Sophie. She blinked. So that's it. That's it. Something in her broke then. She stepped back fast, like I'd burned her. Is it because of her? She snapped. I raised an eyebrow. Lily, she scoffed. God, you're already sleeping with her, aren't you? No, I said calmly. But it's none of your business if I was. Are you serious right now? Her voice rose, sharp and panicked. She's my cousin. My family. And you threw me out of our marriage, I reminded her. You don't get to decide who's off limits anymore. She stared at me, lips trembling. This isn't you, she whispered. No, I said. This is me, finally choosing myself. Sophie opened her mouth like she had one more thing to say, but then something shifted behind me. Movement. She looked past my shoulder. And there was Lily, stepping out from the kitchen, barefoot, holding a mug. Her hair was up, her expression unreadable. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Sophie's eyes went wide. Unbelievable, she breathed. She's here. Right now? With you. She didn't come for this, I said. You did. Sophie's mouth opened. Closed. Then opened again. But Lily beat her to it. You lost him, Soph, Lily said quietly, voice like steel under silk. You don't get to be jealous now. Sophie stared at her, then at me, and whatever mask she'd been wearing. The makeup, the flirtation, the performance, it all cracked at once. Tears welled in her eyes. Real ones. But it was too late for them. She turned without another word, storming down the hall. I watched her go until the echo of her heels faded. Lily exhaled softly behind me. Well, she said. That went about as poorly as expected. I closed the door and leaned against it. She cried. I muttered. She manipulates, Lily replied. That's her pattern. I looked at her then, at the way she stood there in a borrowed sweatshirt, holding my coffee like she'd been doing it for years. You didn't have to say anything, I told her. I know, but you did. I wanted to. She crossed the room and set the mug down. You okay? I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped forward and reached for her hand, gently this time, almost tentative. She looked up at me, that same storm gray gaze I'd seen the first time she knocked on my door. Do you want company? She asked. My fingers closed around hers. I really do. It started with fabric. 3 nights after Sophie's unannounced visit, Lily invited me upstairs again. She didn't call it a date. Lily never did anything that obvious. She simply knocked on my door, barefoot in leggings and a charcoal gray crop top, holding a sketch pad in one hand and a bottle of Malbec in the other. I need a male perspective, she said. And your chest. I blinked. My what? Relax. It's for fashion. 1 glass of wine later, I found myself standing in the center of her living room in nothing but jeans and a smirk. Lily circled me like a wolf with a measuring tape, her tape recorder of a voice murmuring numbers and fabric terms I didn't understand. Breathe normally, she said. Easier said than done, I muttered as her fingers brushed just beneath my ribs. She laughed softly. You're tense. You're distracting. Lily didn't pretend to be surprised. She stepped closer, lifting a swatch of fabric to my shoulder, something deep navy, almost black, the kind of color that made a statement in the dark. She stood close enough that I could smell her shampoo, coconut, and something warmer. She placed the fabric across my chest, smoothing it with her palm. What do you think? She asked. I wasn't looking at the fabric. I said slowly. You're doing this on purpose. Doing what? Closing the distance. She looked up, and our eyes locked. Something shifted in the air between us. The same pull that had hovered for days finally stepped forward. She didn't move her hand. Neither did I. You don't have to be afraid of this, Lily said. I'm not afraid. Good, she whispered. She turned then, deliberately, slowly, and walked toward a table in the corner. It was cluttered with sketches, scraps of silk, and ribbons of lace. Her fingers grazed one design before she looked over her shoulder. You want to help me pick colors? She asked. I'm working on a new capsule line. I exhaled, grateful for the release of pressure, even if only for a moment. Sure. She handed me a stack of design mock-ups, each featuring variations on lingerie pieces, soft bras with ornate trim, sheer bodysuits with high-leg cuts, plunging slips that hinted more than they revealed. Be honest, she said. What feels right? I hesitated. For who? For you, she said, stepping beside me. You're the muse tonight. I tried to focus on the prints, but she leaned in, her shoulder brushing mine. You ever modeled before? She asked. I raised an eyebrow. Do flannel pajamas count? She chuckled. God, no. I held up a slate gray design with a delicate ribbon that crisscrossed the front. This one, it feels dangerous. She smiled. Danger is underrated. She moved closer again, now reaching for a strip of black lace. She held it up and placed it gently along my collarbone, the tip of her finger tracing the path. Now this, she murmured, is sensual. I swallowed hard. You do this with all your neighbors? She laughed, soft and low. Only the wounded ones. We stood there like that for a long beat. Close, not touching. Every second stretched out, heavy with the electricity that had been building since the night she first knocked on my door. I don't want to ruin this, I said quietly. Then don't. I just got out of something awful. I know. She tore me apart, Lily. She met my eyes. Then let me help put you back together. Her voice was quiet. Not seductive, gentle, steady. Her fingers skimmed my wrist, drawing a line up my forearm. You deserve to be wanted, she said. Those words undid me. I stepped forward. Just once. No hesitation this time. I reached up and cupped the side of her neck, my thumb brushing her jaw. Her breath hitched, just barely. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't. So I kissed her. It wasn't wild. It wasn't desperate. It was slow. Intentional. The kind of kiss you give when you've wanted something for too long, and you finally let yourself have it. Her lips were soft, her mouth warm. She tasted like red wine and peppermint lip balm. Her hand slid up my chest and stayed there, like she was grounding herself in the moment. We didn't undress each other. Not that night. When we pulled apart, she stayed close, forehead resting lightly against mine. I wasn't expecting that, she said softly. Liar. She smiled, eyes still closed. Maybe a little. I kissed her forehead. I should go. I know. But she didn't move. And neither did I. Eventually, I left. Slowly. She stood at her door, watching me walk back down to my apartment. No goodnight kiss. No promises. Just a look that said, this isn't over. And deep down, I knew I didn't want it to be. The envelope came on a Tuesday. Plain manila. No frills. No return address. Just my name printed in blocky black letters. Inside, the divorce papers. Final. Signed. Sophie's signature scrawled across the bottom of the last page like the closing chapter of a book I'd stopped reading long before the ending. It felt surreal, staring at the proof that we were done. Legally. Emotionally. Officially. And yet, I didn't feel relief. Not right away. What I felt was weight. Heavy and hollow. Like I'd been carrying a wrecked ship on my back for months, and only now did I realize I was standing in open water. I left the papers on the counter and grabbed my keys. I didn't think. I didn't text. I just went. Lily opened the door in sweatpants and a tank top, her dark hair still damp from a shower, falling in waves down her back. She took one look at me and didn't ask a single question. She stepped aside and let me in. I didn't speak until we were standing in her kitchen, where she handed me a glass of something amber and strong. She signed, I said. Lily didn't flinch. You okay? I laughed, short, bitter. No, not even close. She nodded and took a sip of her drink. What do you need? It was the way she asked that cracked me open. Not what do you want? Not what are you doing here? Just, what do you need? So I answered honestly. You, I said. She set her glass down slowly, walked toward me, and stopped just inches away. I'm not a rebound, she said quietly. I know. I'm not a bandage for your broken marriage. You're not. I need this to mean something, she said, voice steady. Even if we don't put a name on it yet. I met her eyes. It already means something. That was all it took. She kissed me. Not tentative like last time. Not testing the waters. This was deeper. Hotter. Real. My hands slid down her back as hers curled into my shirt, tugging me closer. We didn't talk as she led me down the hallway to her bedroom, her fingers laced with mine. She didn't light candles. There was no music. Just the quiet hum of the city through the window and the sound of two people who'd waited long enough. She pulled her tank top over her head and stood before me, breathless and bare, her curves lit by the soft glow of the hallway light. Her body was art, strong, unapologetic, beautiful in ways Sophie never understood. She didn't pose or shrink or ask if the lighting was flattering. She just looked at me like I was something she wanted. And God, I wanted her back. The rest of our clothes disappeared in pieces between kisses and whispers. No hurry, just hunger. She guided my hands to her hips, her thighs, her waist, like she was teaching me how to touch her, like she wanted me to learn every inch. Lie back, she said softly. I obeyed. She straddled my lap, her skin warm against mine, her hair falling forward as she kissed along my jaw, my neck, my chest. There was no shyness in her, no hesitation. Lily moved like a woman who knew exactly what she liked and was determined to enjoy every second of it. She reached into the drawer by the bed and pulled out a small box. Private collection, she murmured with a smile, sliding it open. Inside, lace, silk, toys, things I'd only seen in passing or heard about in podcasts Sophie swore were too intense. Lily wasn't intense. She was dangerous in the most addictive way. Pick something, she said, lifting a silk ribbon with one brow raised. You trust me with that? I asked. I already do. We didn't sleep much that night. Not because we didn't want to, but because neither of us wanted to stop touching, talking, breathing into the spaces where the other had been hollow. At one point, hours later, she curled into my side, tracing small circles across my chest. When was the last time someone looked at you like you were everything? She asked softly. I didn't answer right away, because I couldn't remember. But now, it felt dangerously close. I think it's happening right now, I said. She smiled and kissed my shoulder. I slept in her bed that night, tangled in her sheets, her scent, her presence. And for the first time since I walked out of Sophie's house, I didn't feel alone. It's strange how quickly something new can feel like home. In the span of 3 weeks, Lily's apartment became more familiar than the house I'd shared with Sophie for 7 years. It wasn't just the scent of lavender and cedar or the lazy jazz playlist she always had playing in the background. It was her. The way she moved, spoke, touched me like I was hers. And I was, in ways I hadn't admitted out loud. Not yet. We didn't label what we were. But I stopped going home at night. Her apartment became the place I dropped my keys. The place I left a toothbrush. The place I started waking up with her wrapped around me. Most mornings started the same. Her bare leg draped across mine, her hair a dark wave across my chest, her breathing soft and steady. We didn't always talk much first thing. Sometimes we didn't need to. Her hands would start to explore before her eyes were even open. Lily made sex into something else. Something unfiltered. There was no routine. No obligation. Sometimes it was slow, teasing, fingers tracing lines across my skin while her eyes stayed locked on mine. Other times, she'd pull me into the hallway before we even made it to the bed, kissing me with a hunger that made me forget everything but the next second. She showed me things Sophie never dreamed of. Not just positions or toys, but presence, awareness. She knew her body, knew mine too. It scared me how easily I fell into it. Into her. And she was falling too. I could see it in the way she touched me after. In the way she lingered with her lips on my shoulder, fingers tracing lines she'd already memorized. In how her laugh shifted from sharp to soft when it was just us. She started bringing me into her work. I thought it would be awkward the first time she asked me to help her model. But it wasn't. It felt intimate, powerful. "You've got better shoulders than any of the guys I pay," she told me, handing me a sheer black robe and a hanger with strappy silk boxers. "You want me in this?" I asked, eyeing the minimal material. "Not want," she said, grinning. "Need." She dressed me herself, positioned me in front of a backdrop in her spare bedroom turned studio. She fixed the lighting, guided my hands, my stance, the tilt of my jaw. And when she finally stepped back to look at me, her eyes darkened with something unmistakable. "God," she murmured, "you're beautiful." No one had ever said that to me before. I didn't feel like a model. I felt like I was being seen. And then, right there in the studio, she dropped to her knees and took her time showing me exactly how inspired she was. We became addicted to each other. Emotionally, physically, constantly. She'd pull me away from the stove when I was cooking, press me against the counter, and whisper exactly what she wanted to do. I'd catch her sketching and interrupt her with a kiss that always led to her perched on the desk, arms tight around my neck. We didn't have rules, but we had rhythm. And I stopped answering Sophie's calls completely. She tried. Texts, voicemails, a missed call from her mother, asking if I was okay. I was better than okay. I was lost in someone else. In someone who didn't ask me to split myself apart just to meet their expectations. In someone who made me feel wanted every damn second we were together. But secrets have weight, and Lily was still a secret. At least to her family. At least to Sophie's family. "Are you worried?" I asked one night, lying in her bed, watching the soft light spill across her bare shoulder. "About what?" "If they find out. About us." She looked at me. "They already suspect. Sophie knows. She told me to stay away from you." My eyebrows raised. "And you listened?" Lily smiled lazily. "Does it look like I listened?" I laughed and pulled her closer. Still, the tension was there. Sophie hadn't confronted either of us directly since that day in the hallway, but we knew it was coming. The silence between storms was always the most dangerous part. "I'm not ashamed of this," I said. "You shouldn't be. I just don't want to hurt anyone." Lily's fingers slid up my chest. "You didn't hurt her. She hurt herself." I wanted to believe that. Maybe I already did. But there was something about being tangled up with Sophie's cousin that made everything feel like I was skating just a little too close to the edge. Still, I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. The way Lily looked at me when I touched her, the way her breath caught in her throat when I whispered her name, there was no faking it. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't rebound. It was real. And I was addicted. Lily and I had grown used to our rhythm. Late nights blurred into late mornings. She'd be sketching in the kitchen in one of my shirts, or I'd wake to the warmth of her legs curling around mine. We didn't talk about the future. We didn't talk about the past. Not unless it slipped out between kisses or under breath after sex. We were a secret, shared only with the silence of her apartment walls and the buzz of my phone I never bothered to answer. But Sophie wasn't staying quiet anymore. It started with a voicemail from her sister. "Hey Jake, I know you and Saf are going through some stuff, but I've been hearing things about you and Lily. Is that real?" I deleted the message. 2 days later, I bumped into Sophie's aunt at the grocery store. The smile she gave me didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Gossip moves fast in families, especially when it's the wrong kind. Lily and I tried to pretend it didn't matter, that we were safe inside this little world we'd built. But tension has a way of soaking through the cracks, even when you don't acknowledge it. "I saw her today," Lily said one night, setting down her phone with a sigh. I was still half-dressed from helping her organize inventory, shirtless, with a measuring tape still hanging loosely around my neck. I looked up. "Sophie." She nodded. She was with her mom at the art supply store. Gave me a look like she wanted to peel my skin off. Did she say anything? No, but she didn't have to. She knows, Jake. I sat down on the couch, pulling her gently into my lap. She didn't resist. She had her chance, I murmured. "I know," Lily said. But knowing Sophie, she's not going to walk away quietly. She was right. It was only a matter of time before the next knock came. Not Lily this time. Sophie. Again. I opened the door, expecting the usual performance. Sad eyes, cracked voice, mascara barely holding. But this time, she was angry. Coiled. Ready to strike. "You really didn't waste time, did you?" she snapped, stepping into the hallway like she owned the space. "Nice to see you too," I said, arms crossed. "Don't," she hissed. "Don't play calm. You're sleeping with my cousin. In the same building. What the hell, Jake?" "You wanted freedom," I said evenly. "You got it. I wanted to explore, not be humiliated." "No one's humiliating you, Sophie. You did that yourself." She crossed her arms. "Is this your way of getting back at me?" "No," I said. "This is my way of moving on." Her eyes scanned my face, searching for some crack in my armor. Something to manipulate. She came up short. "So it's serious?" she asked finally. I didn't answer. That told her everything she needed to know. She laughed bitterly. "God, you're not even denying it. You're just throwing it in my face." "I haven't thrown anything," I said, voice low. "You're the one who keeps showing up." She shook her head, stepping back. "You're unbelievable." But before she could leave, Lily stepped into the hallway, barefoot, wearing one of my hoodies. Sophie froze. "Well," Lily said, "this is awkward." Sophie's face went white-hot. "How long?" Lily didn't flinch. "Does it matter?" Sophie stepped forward. "You're my family, Lily." "And you're mine," Lily replied, folding her arms. "But that didn't stop you from trying to blow up your marriage because you were bored." "I trusted you," Sophie said. "No," Lily snapped. "You used me. You wanted me to take your side when you asked Jake for an open marriage. But I saw what you were doing. You weren't exploring. You were testing how far he'd been before he broke." Sophie's voice trembled. "You don't know what we went through." "I know he deserved better," Lily said. Sophie turned to me, eyes glassy. "Is this it? You're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing myself," I said. "And she just happens to be someone who doesn't make me feel disposable." Sophie's shoulders dropped. Defeated. But her eyes? Still sharp. Still calculating. "You think this is going to last?" she asked. "You think she's not using you to feel powerful?" Lily didn't respond. She didn't need to. I stepped forward, between them. "You're not part of this anymore," I said. "Whatever story you're writing in your head, it's over." Sophie stared at me, then at Lily, then back again. "I'll tell the family," she threatened. "You think they won't pick sides?" "I hope they do," Lily said flatly. "At least then we'll know who's worth keeping." Sophie backed away slowly, swallowing hard. And then, without another word, she turned and walked down the hall. Neither of us spoke for a while after she left. We just stood there. The silence between us felt heavier than it should have. "She's not wrong," I said quietly. Lily raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "This being complicated." Her expression softened. "Do you regret it?" I shook my head. "Not even a little." She stepped closer, pressed her hands to my chest. "Then don't second-guess it." I kissed her then. Not to escape the drama. Not to prove anything. Just to remember why I'd chosen her in the first place. It was supposed to be just another quiet night. Lily was curled on my couch in nothing but one of my t-shirts, sketching a new design in her lap. I was making dinner, steak tips and roasted garlic potatoes. She called it my man meal. The apartment smelled like rosemary, and for the first time in a long time, I felt settled. Until the door slammed open. "Sophie." red-faced, shaking, and not alone. Her mother trailed behind her, flustered and whispering something about talking in private. Sophie wasn't interested in privacy. "This is it," she barked. "This is where you've been hiding?" Lily sat up slowly, setting her sketchbook aside. "Hello to you too. You couldn't even wait until the ink dried on the divorce," Sophie shouted, stepping into the room like it still belonged to her. "Sophie, this isn't your home anymore," I said, stepping between her and Lily. "My family is in this room," she snapped. "And you think I'm just going to let this happen?" Her mother looked from me to Lily and back again. "Maybe we should sit." "No," Sophie cut in. "I want the truth. Right now." Lily stood up slowly. She wasn't afraid. She never was. "You already know the truth, sophomore. You just don't want to hear it." Sophie turned on her cousin like she was ready to rip her apart. "How long? Does it matter?" Lily shot back. "Yes, it matters. Did this start before the divorce?" "No," I said, firm. "But it started the moment you made it clear I wasn't enough." Sophie flinched. For a second, the fire behind her eyes faltered. "You think you're the victim?" she hissed. "I didn't cheat," I said. Her jaw clenched. "I didn't cheat," I repeated. "But I think maybe you did." The room froze. Even Lily's eyes narrowed. Sophie's lips parted, but no sound came. I took a step forward. "Tell me I'm wrong." She looked away. Lily's voice cut in like a blade. "You cheated before you brought up the open marriage, didn't you?" Sophie spun back to her. "It was just once." "Oh my God," I whispered. "It didn't mean anything." Sophie cried, suddenly panicked. "It was a mistake. I felt stuck and You were cheating," Lily snapped. "You just wanted to see if you could talk him into staying while you kept doing it." "I wanted options," Sophie whispered. "I didn't want to lose everything." "But you lost it anyway," I said, my voice flat. "You lost me the second you lied." Her mother sat down, hands over her mouth. "Sophie, oh honey." Sophie looked destroyed now. No more bravado, no more fury. Just a wreck in the center of a mess she created. "I should have told you," she whispered. "You should have never touched someone else," I replied. Lily stepped beside me, her hand brushing mine, silent but steady. Sophie's eyes landed on us, together, present, united. "You really love her?" she asked, almost begging for a no. I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Sophie backed away like I'd hit her. "You two deserve each other," she said bitterly. "No," Lily said calmly. "We chose each other. That's the difference." Sophie didn't reply. She turned and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frame. Her mother stayed seated a moment longer, looking 10 years older than she had when she walked in. Then she rose, looked at me, then Lily, and said softly, "I hope you both know what you're doing." "We do," Lily said, without missing a beat. She left quietly, and then it was just the two of us again, surrounded by the echo of what had just imploded. I turned to Lily, still trying to catch my breath. "You okay?" She nodded, but I could see the shake in her hands. "She's going to turn everyone against us," I said. "Then let them turn," she replied. "She told me she cheated." She finally said it. Lily looked up at me, her eyes sharper now. "And now you can finally stop feeling guilty for letting her go." We stood in silence for a long moment. Then I reached for her hand. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For being the only honest thing in a year full of lies." She leaned into me, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time, I believed her. The family fallout came fast. After Sophie's confession, after the confrontation in my apartment, it didn't take long for the rest of them to pick sides. Some cousins unfollowed me on social media. An uncle sent me a long-winded message about boundaries and respect, which I didn't bother reading past the first paragraph. But the truth? I didn't care. Not anymore. I'd spent years in a marriage that felt like walking a tightrope blindfolded. One step wrong, and I was plummeting into silence or sideways comments, guilt wrapped in soft smiles. That rope had snapped. I was free falling. But this time, I landed on something solid. I landed on Lily. We didn't move in together right away. She offered. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because for once, I wanted to build something with the right foundation. No lies. No rebound energy. Just truth. We started slow again, which meant slow for us was still waking up tangled together more nights than not. Still eating dinner in our underwear on her balcony. Still making love like it was the first time every time. But we also talked more. About what we wanted. and what we didn't. I don't want casual, Lily said one morning, her voice quiet as she pulled one of her silk robes tighter around her. I don't want to be someone's escape. I want to be the place they arrive. You already are, I told her. And I meant it. She challenged me, in the best ways. Pushed me to write again, something I'd abandoned when my marriage started eroding. She read every awkward paragraph like it mattered. She let me model for her when she needed masculine softness for a new line. She let me in, not just into her bed, but into her life. Her world was lace and sketches, mood boards and half-drunk cups of tea. Mine had been spreadsheets, errands, and compromise. Now it was something else entirely. One afternoon, she came home and found me at her desk, sorting fabric swatches into pallets. She stood in the doorway watching me for a minute before she said, "You look good here. Because I'm doing your job?" "No," she smiled. "Because you're finally building something that you love." That night, we sat on the floor, surrounded by candles and half-eaten Thai food. I asked her something I'd been thinking about for weeks. What if we stopped hiding? She raised an eyebrow. From who? From everyone. I'm not ashamed of us. I don't want you to be either. She reached over and slid her fingers into mine. I never was. So we stopped pretending. Photos went up. A dinner with a few of my friends turned into a celebration. Someone said we looked like we'd been together for years. Maybe we had, emotionally, if not in time. Sophie never reached out again. The last message I got from her was a single word: goodbye. It felt more like closure than a door slam. One weekend, Lily took me to a cabin 3 hours north. It was secluded, surrounded by pine trees and silence. She packed nothing but lingerie and oversized sweaters, and I brought a journal I hadn't opened in months. We spent the days writing and sketching and making each other breakfast. The nights were something else entirely. Hot, slow, full of whispered wants and unspoken promises. That Sunday morning, as sunlight broke through the trees, I watched her standing barefoot on the porch, sipping coffee and sketching something on her notepad. She looked back at me. "What?" she said. "Nothing," I smiled. "Just wondering how the hell I got here." "With me?" I nodded. She stepped inside and kissed me slow, deep, then whispered against my lips. Because Sophie wanted adventure. She pulled me closer, breath warm in my ear. "But you found it first." And just like that, the chapter of my old life was closed. This one was just beginning.